Tone a blind eye. Witch. Bearing witness.
The scene opens on ghostly white draperies made of roughly woven translucent cloth. Fog clouds the ground. The effect is surreal, creating an odd forest. A squat phantom tree with odd protruding limbs stands in the center back between two tree trunks that stretch to the sky. A large white rock sits closest to the audience. The witch leans out from behind the squat tree. They are old and weathered like their clothing, and beginning to resemble the ancient forest. They wear brown pants under a thick brown tunic that comes past their knees, with a leatherwork apron. Their head is covered by a worn cowl strewn with feathers, and their hands are protected by chunky gray fingerless mitts.
Those eyes.
They notice an unseen figure.
I almost didn't recognize you, but those eyes haven't changed a day.
They step out further.
In this light, I'm reminded of the last time we wandered the fields together. You were so worried about getting your skirts dirty, jealous that I didn't need to concern myself with how I looked.
They step forward.
You accepted my difference. Never malicious in your laughter like the others I remember. You kept dragging me farther and farther away from the village, singing as you held my hand. I always loved your voice. Stop!
They hold up a hand.
Don't come any closer. That was so long ago. That was before I witnessed you, your eyes barely illuminated by torchlight, stand silently by as I screamed for help. You allowed them to drag me away into the darkness. Then we had only begun to suspect the approaching famine. Perhaps that's why they abandoned me when they did. Finally, a legitimate excuse to remove the aberration, with the added benefit of one less mouth to feed, one less person to care for.
They look off to the side.
You weren't the only ones with the idea. I remember, despite everything, being surprised to find him. A child of no more than 12, fingertips blue from the cold, wandering throughout the quiet, endless forest. The crunch of snow under his small feet alerted my birds to his presence, and they brought me to him. I realized later that it wasn't long into the famine that parents began to divest themselves of their children. But in that moment, all I could see was his trembling figure, stark against the untouched world around him.
They reach out a hand, then step back to the tree.
I brought him back with me, through the ice and snow and towering trees. I let him warm himself by my fire, fed him soups and healing herbs, bonded with him over our shared irregularities.
They caress the tree.
Once, you and I dreamed of creating a haven for outcasts like him, like me, to provide protection from an ignorant world. I did my best to make this a home for the both of us.
They look to the treetop.
One winter became 2, became 5. He didn't have the hands for magic, but he loved to sing. I taught him songs, the same ones you and I once sang as we wandered the fields together. He made me remember kindness, hope, the warmth of companionship. In him, I found what I'd thought that I'd lost with you. A chance for kindred community, for unhindered joy. Or so I thought. Until at last a summer came where he decided to depart. to find a world bigger than our birdsong woods. He wanted to try and bend the world's ear, to find acceptance despite our difference. I could not understand. How could he leave without the guarantee that these woods had provided us up to this point? My fear rooted me to the earth.
Their hand is outstretched.
I watched him go, heart constricted against its cage, breaths coming fast and shallow without relief. I had forgotten the feeling of loneliness. In his departure, I was destroyed.
They lower their hand once more and walk to the rock.
More children came as the years passed and the famine worsened. Somehow always one at a time, never overlapping. Each was the same, small, starving, pitiful. They didn't stay long. They had communities waiting for them to return if they were able to survive. They were kind, but distant. They could not understand my difference as he once did, and I could not explain it to them.
They look away.
Despite my pain, I took each new child in, sheltered them from cold and starvation when no one else would. I swallowed the dread each time they departed, returning to the homes they'd been cast out of. Each time I hoped they'd be the last person I ever saw. If no more children came to my doorstep, I could believe that there was some goodness left outside of these woods.
They twist to look to the tree.
I held this foolish hope that I would no longer be needed. I held it hard and fast, even as the ground continued to withdraw, as plants withered and stayed dead, as more people came to these woods on the verge of death, hunger overtaking the whites of their eyes. I witnessed their cruelty, the flesh they took from each other in desperation. I smelled the stench of rot on the wind.
They clutch their tunic.
With each passing winter, I retreated farther into the woods, and still the horror ended up on my doorstep. Nothing I did seemed to matter. The children came and went, and the world remained unchanged.
Their gaze is distant.
Many years on, a child came to my doorstep. The same as all those that had come before, with a gaunt face and ribs poking through too thin fabric, except her eyes were a spitting image of another child I had taken in so long ago. She confirmed for me that it was true. Her own mother had abandoned her to die in these woods as she herself had been abandoned so many years ago. It was then that I learned my lesson. It was hopeless to shelter children who would only grow up and continue the pain that had once been inflicted on them, so I stopped letting them leave. I offered food, shelter, tenderness before they were resolved into the earth again. The birds were silent as my hands tried to break the cycle of suffering from them all. I could not allow them to bring more suffering to my doorstep. I could not bear it any longer. If they perished here, they would lose the chance to send their own children into these woods. They would lose the chance to add to the cruelty of the world. The cleverest of the children suspected, of course, but is it not better to join the universe in comfort than in despair? From here, I waited for a new crunch of snow under small feet, for a timid knock at the door. And then those siblings came through. The same ones whose tale brought you looking for me, I would imagine.
They step back.
Don't look at me with that horror in your eyes.
They point.
You have only come this far into my domain just to check for a corpse, To feel at peace that those children finished the job you started so many years ago. You have no right to pass judgment upon me. I do not know what it was that caused me to hesitate in leading them towards their eternal peace.
They stare in the distance.
They were the first to come in a pair. Despite the suffering in their eyes, they held fast to each other.
They step closer.
They were kind and gentle and protective. They reminded me of who we used to be. The younger, the girl, gods. She was so frightened of me.
They sit upon the rock.
Seeing her fear and her resolve felt as if I was waking from a deep sleep. I allowed her to shove me into the fire and escape. I knew I could not perish, but it would give her the peace of mind she so desperately needed.
They stare at their fidgeting hands.
A monster. That is what I have become. It wasn't until those siblings that I realized. And you.
They shoot to their feet.
You've come to bear witness, haven't you? To see the monster in all their glory. I have been awoken, and I will not bring my judgment upon another child.
They look up, eyes obscured by their cowl.
You, however, are no child. You have brought misery upon me, upon this world, and now you stand before me, your eyes dark with fear, with revulsion. Well, let me give you a reason for fear.
The witch stares forward, then suddenly turns away. They shuffle, hunched over to the tree. Touch it longingly. Look up to the sky. Look down at the ground. And then exit.
Witch, Kels Veeder. Written by Kels Veeder. Director and audio description editor Heather May. Scenic and lighting design and technical direction Ed Hallborg. Costume design Katharine Tarkulich. Sound design, original music, and cinematography Kelly Walker. Stage manager Adrian Bayless-Marr. Audio description July Winters. Audio description written by Karina Connolly, July Winters. Color correction and grading Alex Kerai. Captioning Claire Abelson, Sophie Ritter. Set construction Janne Kneike, Troy Tedeschi. HWS Theater, Hobart and William Smith Colleges.